Hey y'all, welcome to a new video. This is going to be a big one. This is my eyeshadow declutter. I know I normally do these in a top-down, like swatching and evaluating a shadow just on how it moves on my arm. We're not doing that today. I sat down and I did 2 looks with just about every single one of my eyeshadow palettes. Some of them I did more, one of them I did less. So I'm gonna run the footage and talk about the palette, and then I will let you know my decision as to decluttering. This is gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a little juicy. There's a couple that I know I'm gonna declutter. I haven't really talked through my feelings about the rest of them, but we're gonna do that today. So sit back, grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's dive into it. All right. So first of all, in these clips, there's some white powder on my shirt. It's just dry shampoo. So the first palette we're going to talk about is the Rowan Eyes on Me quad. This quad is, it's kind of a one-trick pony, but I like the trick that it does so well that I'm going to keep it. I did the same look on both eyes. I did this before I really conceptualized, oh yeah, I'm doing one look on one eye. So this is just texture. It's this really gorgeous terracotta orange. I don't normally like orange on my fair skin because I have a bit of a, pinky neutral complexion. And I don't like the way that golds and oranges play, but I really do love this terracotta color story. So you can see in the footage that these creams apply really beautifully. These mattes are not, the one matte in here is really not a matte. It's more of a satin, but it has a good amount of pigment load to it. The pale shade in here gives me the most beautiful veil of glimmer. I don't know how to explain it. I don't have anything else that works the way that this one does. And when I want a really beautiful, easy terracotta eye look, this is a palette that I can go to and know that it's going to work and accomplish what I want it to do. So that's gonna stay. So the Rowan Mood Forever, this is a replacement. I have already finished one of these. This one has gotten some use. I love this little palette. It's so useful. These 4 shades are great on their own. They work seamlessly together. The lightest, well, I don't want to call it the lightest shade in here. The brightest shade has almost this like clear to blue flip. It's bonkers. This lightest shade gives that same kind of veil, but it's got more of a yellow gold tone to it. It's different. And I really love the textures on these. This is not one of those palettes that has like those really creamy glitters in it. And I'm fine with that. This is a really good palette for travel. It's a good palette for just everyday use because it is so versatile. I really like it, and it's small and it's shelf stable creams in a palette. That right there, yeah. And they work with both a brush or my fingers. So they're not too fussy. All right, let's get into these Pat McGrath palettes. I'm going to talk about the 3 small ones, and then later on when we get to the big palettes, I'll talk about the big one. So the first one is, so this is the Venus in Fleur in Voyeuristic Vixen. This is another one that looks like it could be a one-trick pony, and this, look, she does this rosy brown in just about every palette she makes, but that's because it's such a versatile shade. It's such a versatile matte. It can really be feathered out lightly, can be applied in a more concentrated area to get like a to get some depth on the corner of an eye. It can be used as a liner. It's just a very versatile shade on a lot of skin tones. I am not a huge bronze fan, but this one I really like. It's got a good amount of pink to it, so it works on my skin tone. This yellow orange multi-chrome, I don't have anything like this in my Clionadh shadows because I know I have this. I've never been tempted to buy something like this from Clionadh. And then the creamy white in here, this has a big dip because I use this a lot for my inner corner highlight. It just is easy. It's easy with a brush. I don't necessarily do it with my fingers. I use my fingers with the multi-chrome and with the bronze. But this was also a gift from an ex-boyfriend. He was actually the ex-boyfriend who inspired me to start this channel. So I owe him a thank you. Not that he's ever gonna see this. But I love this little quad. It is so useful, so helpful. And if I'm going somewhere or I want a really easy look, this is a good one to take. It's got a lot of impact. So this is one of the holiday palettes from Pat McGrath. This is the Celestial Nirvana Eye Palette in Nude Allure. It does not look very cohesive when you first look at it, but it's surprisingly useful. I like all of the shades in here, especially this bronze at the top. It reminds me of that Pat McGrath, the other bronze from the quad, but it's definitely warmer. It's got more peach to it, and it is the perfect bedroom eyes brown on me. I can throw it on and I get this like sultry, spangly, beautiful look. I can also use the peach and get just an easy everyday shimmer. The purple is a little bit out of my comfort zone these days. I don't wear a lot of purple eyeshadow, but I'm glad I have this palette because it is just, again, it's versatile, it's weird, but I like it a lot. It's kind of like my friends. They are versatile and weird, and I like them a lot. And I really like both of the looks. I like both of the looks that I did with this palette. They were easy, they were pretty, and they really opened my eyes to what that palette is usable for. All right, so now we're gonna talk about, so this is the Bijou Brilliance eyeshadow palette in Sunset Romance. This is what is on my eyes today. I did one look. This is two eyeshadows. This look, this shadow all over the crease up to my eyebrow, the outer part of my brow. That's where I carry my matte shadows. And then this center shade all over the lid. And that's it. It's easy. It's beautiful. These shadows are like, they can blur out really beautifully, but you can build them up to have some impact. This is a fabulous all-in-one. This palette has about 4 looks for me. It has about 4 really good looks that I can depend on it for. And if I'm, again, just picking up an eyeshadow palette to do a look for a video, this is a fabulous little palette. My next palette is a pretty big kahuna. This is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork 7. I should caveat this video with, I don't know that these are looks that I would do every day, but I wanted to get a sense of what these shadows are able to do. I wasn't terribly careful about my shapes or cleaning up my edges. As you will see in some of these upcoming palettes, my application method is pretty messy, and I was doing these over wet concealer. I was doing these over the Glossier Stretch Concealer, which acted as a bit of a primer, but also blanked out my lids, because as I was doing this, my eyes were getting rather red. So that is a caveat. That is a grain of salt with which to take this information, but I wanted to get a sense of what these palettes could do, regardless of occasion, regardless of amplitude, regardless of what I was trying to accomplish with the look. I just wanted to do a look. So that is something that we needed to establish before we get into this palette, because this palette is, it's a lot. It's a lot. I love this palette, but it's a lot. I don't know what it is about green eyeshadow that seems to be following me. Every palette I open seems to have an eyeshadow that does something green, with few exceptions, like the 4 that I just talked about. The 5 that I just talked about, those palettes tend to be pretty neutral. So I wanted to see if I could do something with this palette that wasn't shamrocky green. I'm pretty sure that this is Mother Earth. It's this really interesting grubby purple to green. It's grubby, it's gray, it's really intriguing. And again, it's different from anything else I have in my collection. I'm sure I have green shadows with a pink or a purple flip in my Cliona collection, but there's something about this shadow that is just sultry and smoky, and I really like it. As far as the mattes in these Danessa Myricks palettes go, they're really easy to work with. They're nice and smooth. They blend into each other nicely, even over a damp concealer. The shimmers are wild. I love the shimmer textures. We have several textures in this palette, and I don't know what they all are, but you've got these really smooth mattes. You've got these shimmery, smooth iridescents that are both just absolute bangers. You've got these other smooth, reflective shimmers. You then have, God, I don't even know how to describe these. They're a little flaky, a little chunky, but they're so shiny. It really is bananas what this palette can do. Now, and then the pièce de résistance, you have these incredibly flaky multi-chromes that just go bananas. The one quad that I do have, I guess qualms with, the one is this blue gray up here. There's some really gorgeous shades up here, but these are not things that I normally would reach for, which is one of the reasons this palette grabbed me, was because it's different. I don't have anything else in here that dupes this palette. Look at that silver. Look at it on the eyes. That is sickening. It really shines. I am just using natural light and a ring light. I don't have studio lighting. I do have a stand lamp in the corner, but that's all the lighting I'm working with. And you can see the shine and the reflect on these shadows so beautifully. I love this palette. It's not going to be going anywhere, obviously. I do also really love how multifunctional and modular this palette is. I can pop each individual shadow out of its little pan. I have a lid, I have a bag. This palette is just so versatile. I keep using that word, but that's what I look for in my eyeshadow palettes, is versatility. My Cliona shadows, my little rectangular, will fit in here, and they get a little compressed when you stack them, but that's, in my eyes, that's not a bad thing. It means that the shadow is not going to be rocking and moving around. I do really love this palette, and it is going to stay in my life. It's going to stay in my collection. I know that it's limited edition and a lot of folk, and you can't get it anymore, but I don't care. I'm not trying to keep an eyeshadow palette collection that is relevant. I'm trying to keep an eyeshadow palette that works with my style and my method of using my makeup. All right, we're gonna talk Makeup by Mario. So this is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette. This is the first one that was released, the one that had all of the hype And I gotta tell you, it does live up to that. It's got these absolute, I love the mattes in this palette. If these were all of the mattes that I owned, I would want to add a couple more, but this is great. The shimmers in here run a little orange or a little deep for my liking, but they do have this really beautiful twinkle. The mattes blend out beautifully. They're soft, they're buttery. They have a real presence on the skin, but they're not too dark and they're not hard to blend, which is what I love in a good matte. I don't want a matte that's going to stick to the eye and be tough to blend. These blend out really, really easily. When it comes to versatility and the number of looks I can do with this palette, there are a handful that come to mind immediately, but if I really force myself out of my comfort zone, I've got a lot of depth that I can play with. I've got warmth, I've got cool, I've got a lot in here that is just really inspiring and that really gets my brain going. All right, moving along to the Etherealized Nature palette. I really wish I felt the same way that I do about number one. I just don't. I find this palette really limiting and restricting. I always find myself going for this berry shade because it is one of the most useful shadows, and it's something I work a lot with on my eye, with my eye color. But the shimmers in here just don't have the same magic that the shimmers in the other palette do. I am squarely disappointed by this like grubby green multi-chrome. It feels like it's barely there. The mattes are Mario's typical matte formula, which means that they're smooth, they're easy to blend. I don't have the range of depth. I have one dark brown, which is fine. I don't tend to go for a lot of depth, but when I want it to be in the palette. And this just does not do it for me. I am going to declutter this. I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to sell it. And I think that it'll give it a new life. The cover is even still on the mirror. I think it'll be fine. All right, y'all. Next, we're going to talk about this little Makeup Revolution and Clueless palette. I've kept this around for a while because I said I liked the mattes in here. However, during this project, I have discovered I have mattes that I like better than these two mattes. I don't feel the need to keep a 6-pan palette in my collection just because it's cute and it reminds me of my youth. I just don't see the point. It doesn't perform the way I wish it did. The creams are a fine texture. I just don't like these colors. The purple is, like I said, it's fine. I don't even think this is worth selling. I'm going to pass this along to friends because I know that they too will get the same kick of nostalgia out of this that I did, but they will appreciate it more than I do. It doesn't have it for me. I don't know that I've ever used this red. Again, this purple is redundant. I do have purples in my collection that I enjoy better than this. This is not in great shape. I'm going to pass it along to a friend. We're going to talk ABH Rose Metals. I bought this because I saw Khaki Review Beauty review it, and she had nothing but great things to say. And I have to agree with her, with limitations. This palette has a really beautiful color story. I like the idea of breaking it down into 4 quads, which it is. It's a green quad, a rusty quad, and then this really beautiful mauve quad. There are 2 transition shades in here, and one is warm, one is cool. I don't really have one of those for the greens because they're all shimmers. You have Heavenly, Haze, Nocturne, and Nova all of which are shimmers. So I have a hard time busting through that idea that I don't have a green transition shade, because I want to use a green, I don't want to use a warm transition shade on a green shadow. That's just my own preference. However, the textures are really lovely. I love this flat shimmer as opposed to the like sparkly. I mean, I like all of the tones in here. They're different. The greens are a little grubby, which if I'm gonna wear a green, it's not gonna be a traditional like Kelly green. It's gonna be a little weird. It's gonna have some depth to it. It's gonna have some gray. And I feel like I get that with this palette. This is my like, I don't really have this stuff anywhere else except in this palette. And I know I have it, and that's where I go for it. So this little palette is actually really useful in that I don't have anything else like it. Just like the Danessa Myricks Lightwork palette, it stands alone because it's unique. All right, next we have a palette I haven't really talked about much. I bought this as a foray into some of the indie eyeshadow brands that I've been wanting to use, but I haven't gotten around to. So this is from Auden's Eye. This is their Saga of Freya palette. I bought this because it is two different palettes. So you've got this cooler toned icy palette on one side, and on the other side you have these wild mattes with these really interesting shimmers. These mattes are sick. They blend out so nicely. They're soft, they're creamy, they're not terribly pigmented. They take a minute to build up, and I'm okay with that. I would rather, as I've said before, I'd rather have a matte that is softer, creamier, less pigmented, that takes some time to build up than one that is super rich and dark and stamps and will not blend. That is my preference. These shimmers are all really beautiful. They have a lot of this gleamy glowiness to them that I don't, you know, I greatly, that I just appreciate. Yeah, I used the green as like an inner corner pop of color, and I like how true to color it is. I like how rich it is. It does blend out pretty softly. So if you're gonna use something like that, I would suggest like wetting it or a primer, something to really make it pop. Again, these are shades I don't have anywhere else. So I'm gonna keep this palette. I'm gonna keep playing with it. This experiment has really given me a good grasp of what this palette can do, and I want to keep using it. All right, we've got some heavy hitters. These are palettes that were either gifts. I think I bought the My Dream palette secondhand, but I love this palette. Of all of the Natasha Denona palettes out in the world, this one is my favorite. It has the warmth that I love with a little bit of coolness, a lot of rosiness. These cream to powder shades are really weird, but I like them. They're strange. They're a lot brighter than they appear in the pan, so you have to balance for that. This green to pink multi-chrome down here is really strange. I did switch out a sample from one of the other palettes for the black that was in here because I don't use black. I just don't use black. And I find even if I wanted a black, Natasha Denona's blacks are just kind of wimpy because her matte formula is creamy and it's a little lighter, it's a little more tough to blend. Natural fiber brushes are definitely the way to go. And I love the mattes in here. I don't find myself wanting for anything else when I'm using this palette. It's just so gosh dang versatile. And that is the word that I keep using when I talk about my palettes. It is instilling in me the idea that I have done a good job in curating this eyeshadow palette collection, and I don't want it to go any further. I want it to maybe shrink down, but I want to have a working knowledge of how all of these palettes perform. And this palette in and of itself is one of my favorites. It may be my favorite palette that I own that's this size. I have my little 5-pan Pat McGrath with that beautiful mauve color story, but this is different. This, what is this? What is this called? Serenity. I love this shadow. If I want to do a smoky, cool toned eye, that is the shade I go for. Look at how beautiful that is. And I don't have anything like that anywhere else in my collection. It's got some purple to it. It is just so different. And that is what I think of when I reach for this palette, is usable, but different. And it's just so gosh darn good. I also love that the pans are depottable. So I could, in theory, work these in with my Danessa Myricks shadows. I could work these in with my Cleona shadows. There's so much that I can do with this palette and with these shadows that it just opens up a whole world of versatility. Let's talk Mama Pat again. So this is the Pat McGrath Utopian Dreams palette. This was a 40th birthday gift from a friend, and I cannot help but smile when I look at this palette and when I think of it, because it's good. I also got the, what is it, the Moonlit Seduction number 10, and all I wanted to use was this. I did not want to use that palette. I just kept veering away from it and going to this. The only shade I don't use in here is this gold. I've said it before. I don't love oranges. I don't love golds. I don't love yellows, but I love the rest of the, like this top quad and these bottom, like all of these are great. The really sparkly shades in here, these come alive when you wet them. You spray them with a little water and then put them on the eyes, and they have just this absolute blingy, spangly, gorgeous brilliance to them that I don't have in anything other than my Cleona shadows. I love the hit of hot pink. These kind of, this oil slick shade down here is really different. And I just love this palette. It's a little bit restricting, but I know what I want when I reach for this palette. The last palette we're going to talk about is a bit of an outlier as far as my palettes go, because this is not like a commercially available palette. This is an amalgam of different Natasha Denona shades that I have built myself. Some of these are her 5-pan palettes that are all depottable. Some of these are the Lila palette. Like you can see that some of these original Lila palette shades have just gone through it. But after using them for this experiment, I have learned that they're still usable. They're still beautiful. Their binders are still good. They're not crumbling or falling apart just yet. I anticipate that happening in the next couple of years, but I've had this palette a long time. I have curated all of these shadows. I reach for this for singles. I reach for it as itself. And again, this has really cemented what I own into my brain, and I don't need any more eyeshadow. I'm good. I'm good. So that, friends, is my eyeshadow palette collection and my declutter for this year. I have only decluttered 2 palettes, but you know what? Any weight is good weight. Dropping this Makeup by Mario Etherealized Nature palette, I don't love it. I didn't love it the way I thought I would, and it took me some time to come to grips with that because I wanted to love it. I wanted it to be everything that the first palette wasn't, with a little bit more grubbiness, a little bit more color, and it just wasn't. This silly Makeup Revolution Clueless palette, I had it in my collection for a couple years. I thought of it. I really loved having it as a piece of nostalgia, but it just didn't do what I needed and wanted my palettes to do. And that is, it was not useful. It was cute. It was not useful. And it's one of my friends is really going to love this because it will remind them of their youth. It'll remind them of being young. So how many palettes does that leave me? If we include my Natasha Denona, which I guess for this video we are, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 palettes. Now, at the beginning of my YouTube channel, I made a video. I think I may have uploaded the unedited version. Nonetheless, all of the information is there. At one point, I owned over 40 eyeshadow palettes, and I barely used any of them. I went through a series of depotting and decluttering. This was before I learned that I could sell things, and I gave a lot of makeup to friends, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're giving us so much makeup." It was a lot of makeup, but that was tuning and training my brain to understand I don't need a vast array of palettes. I need palettes that are versatile and that have that usability and that modular quality that will allow me to really build what I want. And that is what I have here. I have small palettes. I have palettes that are going to allow me to remove shadows and play with them. And that's all I really need. 12 palettes. And I've used them all, and I have fallen back in love with what I have. If you are doing a big palette declutter, let me know what you're doing. How are you doing it? What format are you using? Because I have discovered that this format works really well for my brain. I love it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you all are taking care of yourselves so you can take care of each other, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, friends.